Council, May 23rd, 2023 at 2 p.m. in council chambers. So first, we will ask for a motion to approve the agenda and no living items that are already included. Okay, thank you. Dr. Poderica, Councilor King, all in favor. Thank you. And adoption of some minutes, the special open minutes of May the 4th, the special open minutes of May the 9th, and the regular open minutes from May the 9th. Could I have a motion to accept those first? Councilor Bennett, Councilor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. And so we will move on to the development variance permit application number 2302 at 3616 Torrey Pines Drive. And I will note that we have had 4 pieces of correspondence that have been received. An email from the owners at 3607 Pebble Beach Drive supporting the application. A letter from the owners at 3609 not supporting it. Letter from 3809 Pebble Beach Drive not supporting it, and an email from 3619 Torrey Pines Drive supporting the application. And so I'm going to ask if there is anyone from the public who would like to speak to this development variance permit, either in the room or online. There's someone on there? No. Okay. I'll ask for a second time. If there is anyone in the public who would like to speak with the development variance permit. And for a third time, is there anyone wishing to speak to that development variance permit? Hearing none, we will go on to the development variance permit report from our planning technician. That would be Ms. Curtis.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. This report is to request council make a motion on one of the suggested options that administration has provided based on the feedback received in response to the rectification process. So zoning bylaw number 10B5, 1998 stipulates a side yard setback of 1.2 meters is required for accessory buildings. The applicant is asking for a reduction to the side yard setback from 1.2 meters to 0.3 meters, so 30 centimeters. Please note that the development variance permit application was submitted retroactively after construction of the accessory building had already started without a building permit. The requested variance will bring the accessory building into compliance with town's zoning bylaw. No formal stop work order was placed on the property. However, the building inspector notified the property owner that construction of the accessory building was to stop until such a time as the development variance permit and a building permit were issued. As a result of the applicant having started construction of the accessory building without a permit, the applicant will be charged double for fees as per Part 1, Section 7.4 of the town's building code and administration bylaw. As the property is located within the Vivid Range subdivision, the applicant is also required to meet the guidelines set out in the design scheme as registered on title. The developer is the approving authority for proposed buildings within the subdivision. Administration was approached by the developer and informed that the accessory building as it is currently does not meet these guidelines. The applicant is also required to have the approval of the developer for the design of the accessory building prior to the building permit being issued. So as mentioned, we have received 4 letters of correspondence to opposition and to support. Your options before you today are that council does not approve issuance of DVP or development variance permit number 2302 as construction of the accessory building can be accommodated within the specified setback as per the town's zoning bylaw. 2, that council consider comments received by the neighbors in response to the notice issued for the development variance permit and policy BLA 005, and that council issue DVP number 2302 with the understanding that no building permit will be issued prior to the approval and consent of the developer as per the building scheme registered on the title.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. This might be a little hard to answer, though. The building inspector looked at it, seeing he hadn't got a building permit, So wouldn't it have been normal to put a proper stop work order on the property? It's now just becomes hearsay whether we even went there or not.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McCord. Through the chair, thank you, Councillor King. Being it's an accessory building, not a structure that's going to be used for human habitation. I mean, it's not unusual to just issue that directly to the property owner. It was recorded in the books upon arrival back at the office, so we felt comfortable leaving it at that.
Okay, now again, this could be propaganda, but I heard there was more work done after the inspector was there. Do you know that is factually true or not true?
Thank you again through the chair. We don't have factual evidence to support it one way or the other.
Okay.
So, council, what are you? Anybody got a suggestion? One of the concerns that I had was that the developer has informed that the accessory building as currently does not meet the guidelines of the design scheme. And I'm wondering, to solve this problem, whether the building should be redone correctly and moved so that there wasn't a need for the development variance permit. But that was just my thoughts when I read it, but I'm certainly wanting to hear from everybody else. If anybody has any ideas, go ahead, Councillor Chong.
So I just do want to clarify that 2 of 4 correspondences were from the same people, right? The 2 in opposition.
The same owners,
Same
that they
owners.
own 2 properties.
Exactly. So it's so in terms of impact to the immediate community, it's not like they're. I just want to clarify, it's not 2 times the amount of people who are opposed. It's the same people who are opposed. It's 2 properties that they own. And then also to clarify the accessory buildings uses, I'm assuming mainly as a storage. Or it's not for human habitation.
That is correct through the chair again. Thank you, Councillor Chong. Not for habitation and no plumbing is included in the building.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I guess I still struggle with the idea of passing something after the fact. If this would have come up forward, I don't see a problem with variance. But now you're trying to get something passed, and to me, it would just open the door to a lot of developers. Well, let's just build it and ask for some forgiveness after. And I don't think that quite strikes good with our own bylaw.
Go ahead.
I think that's a little bit of an over exaggeration. I mean, this is just an individual. To the best of my knowledge, it's an individual who's building the shed was not aware of the depth of the bylaws. We do have quite a few. It's not a developer who's trying to just need something over our heads. I do understand that we need to be vigilant with our bylaws, and enforcement is something that is in our strategic goals as well. At the same time, I don't see a significant with any negative impact with having with just the variance current person.
Thank you. Could we ask the owner of the property next door, which would be most impacted at 3614? We have not heard from that owner, have we? It will be right up against that person's property line.
That is correct. We did not hear from them.
But they were approached to have a letter. There was a letter sent to
A
them.
letter sent and hand delivered.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Worship.
Yeah, sure.
After you, the current location of the shed, there is room, there is room on the current. Or there is the ability to the current site or site map to have that relocated where we're not required to be changing the variance. Right? Not facing a slope issue or anything about it.
Thank you again through the chair. Councillor Federico. Yes, there's an opportunity. The applicant is in the audience if you're so wish to ask. But
I thought that the applicant might have had an opportunity to speak before, which is, I wasn't sure that the applicant was there. I'm not sure how to deal with that one. Is that possible, or has that, have we already dealt with that?
The council had a question.
Okay, we had a question. It does say the property owner wishes to comply with the zoning regulation has agreed to move the accessory building in the event that we do not issue a variance. So, is the property owner in the audience?
Yes, Mayor.
Is that correct?
should
That's
speak.
what- I'm sorry, would you come up?
Would you like me to?
Yes,
No
thank
problem.
you. Could you just state your name and your address, please?
Yeah, my name is Justin Fortin. I'm owner of 3616 Torrey Pines Drive.
Thank you. So that is a correct statement that you have agreed that you would move the building?
I agreed that I would deal with it. I haven't decided if that would be either A, moving it, reducing its size so that it doesn't require a building permit at that point, but it's not my intention to go against the bylaws if I don't get a variance. I'll find a solution that's within the bylaws.
Thank you. But it does say as well that the developer of the subdivision, it says that it doesn't currently meet the guidelines. So I assume you would still have to adjust the building no matter where it was in order to meet these guidelines.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's referring to. I haven't had a full conversation with him. My understanding of the process is that you guys would approve the variance, and then I would still need to go for a building permit. And it would not be issued that permit until the developer did find that everything I was doing was within those guidelines. I'm not sure how he could say that it's not at this time, because right now it's basically just a wood structure. It's really not finished. There is a bit of a metal roof on it, but it's not finished either. So, again, yeah, my intention is to comply with the guidelines that he would set forth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. We appreciate that. Thank you. You can have a seat.
Thank you, Mayor McCord, for the opportunity just to clarify. So, as it sits right now, that has been suggested that it doesn't meet the guidelines. Mr. Ford would have to provide full set of drawings to the developer, including the exterior finishes and details on those finishes before they would provide something in writing one way or the other to us with respect to the building scheme.
Thank you. So,
So
council, what do you?
that's more question.
Yes,
So if we pass as a variance, we kind of keep it in one place, then he would be issued, he still would get a permit to use subject to the things you just mentioned.
Thank you again to the chair. Thank you, Councillor King. A permit would only be issued if we had confirmation
Oh,
from the developer that it met the building scheme guidelines for Dividend Ridge.
okay. And right now, the shed, you guys, you put stuff in, it's got a roof on it.
Did you want me to approach?
yeah.
I'll sit here, so.
Well, you might have to do it into the,
Yeah.
into the microphone. Thank you.
Sorry. The roof is not finished. It was started, it's not finished. I don't have anything of value in there right now.
Sure.
But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So council, we need to come up with a motion of, presumably one of the three options that are there. Does anyone have a suggestion for a motion?
Move option 3.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Okay, thank you. So, any other questions or concerns about this? All right, so if we're ready, I will ask the question, all in favor of option 3? Okay, that has not passed then, so could we have another, could we suggest another option, please?
Move option 1.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for option 1? Thank you, Dr. King. We're ready, all in favor of option 1? Against? Thank you, that's carried. So, a letter will be sent to Mr. Fortin concerning this, am I correct? Ms.
Yes, thank you, Mayor McCord, that's correct.
Thank you very much, everybody. for taking part in it. Okay, we will go to water matters. So the water matters, water districts 8 and 9 financial accounts, that the reported expenditures from accounts payable for water district information be received for information. And as of May the 23rd, 2023, the water district tax requirements are in the amount of $42,937.44.
Moved.
Thank you. Councillor Appleby, seconded. Councillor Morera. All in favor? Thank you. All right, next. Back to go. The staff reports, and that would be the restructuring discussion and East Bench boundary expansion request. I will ask Mr. Pate to speak to this, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor McCordock. So this report has been prepared in response to a petition that was actually received in 2018. At that time, the petition came from members of the community on the East Bench misuse. They're outside of the town boundaries and no action was taken at that time. In 2021, while discussing the rural water twinning project, returning council members will recall that the petition discussion on that particular petition of 2018 did come up, and staff, it was requested of staff that they reach out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, looking at opportunities for any sort of restructure study grants that might be available. And at that time, we had two in process boundary expansions, and then we've also just are almost, well, sort of in the final stage, let's say, of the two property boundary expansion on highway 3 East. So basically, we reached out to the provincial staff, and there are a number of different types of local government restructured grants available. They cover such things as transition implementation costs, and they also cover such things as costs associated with public consultation and that kind of process. And then, of course, larger decisions may affect things like your financial situation. So there's a lot of different grants available. The challenge is, as a small municipality, if we're going to move forward with seeking some of that money to determine if the restructuring is feasible or the right thing for this community, we would have to first decide on the bigger picture, larger area that we were going to consider for boundary expansion, no matter how big that was or how small, but they only want us to do that once to decide on that particular area. Even if it's a 20, 30, 40 year, vision down the road, you would decide on that area, and then with the general approval at the province of that concept, you could conceivably do it in chunks, right? Do it in pieces. You wouldn't have to do the whole thing all at once. But that's basically what they've advised. And of course, you'd have to look at the rationale for that longer term outlook. And then at our end, at the municipalities end, of course, there would be significant amount of work required to determine the benefits and challenges, or what we have to, look to the future for things like infrastructure, community services, etc. So, this is the report for council to consider whether or not this is a good time to add this item to the strategic priorities list to enable us to start putting together some options possibly of what that boundary area might look like and possible rationale, pardon me, for those options.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out before we go any further that the motion from 2021-04-13 that's mentioned in here was never acted on. It was made and it was requesting a restructured study grant that would look at the implications of incorporating properties on the east side of the Vesuvius Lake. At that time, as I recall, it was passed at a regular meeting, but we were in the middle of COVID and dealing with a
Right.
lot of things that didn't get done in the town. And I think it was just picked up recently that this was the motion and it hadn't been acted on, which is why we're looking at it.
And
Correct? Yeah.
yes, but I believe Mayor McCarthy, if I may, it was an action item. It wasn't a formal resolution or motion made by council. It was more of a direction to staff, but that's correct. That was heavy COVID time.
Yes, it was. And so we were busy with a million other things, I'm guessing, because it wasn't acted on. Councillor King.
Yeah, I can support this going forward. I just have a question. Would you see this sort of in your top 5 things to do or just on the list and they can move up as some of your other projects get completed?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Councillor King, through the chair. I would see this kind of hovering around the bottom of the list at this particular time. We really need to obviously move the OCP through the process, and then there's some other bylaws that need to be updated as well, including the land use procedures bylaw and the fee structure bylaw, or the fees for our building permits, and there's some other items that are currently in the works that we'd like to complete before we move on to this project. This would also take time from every department,
I hear you.
so.
I'll move number 1.
Okay, does anybody want to second that motion? And we can ask questions about it, yeah.
Sure. Clarification.
Sure.
Not seconding. You noted that we only have one opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Chong, through the chair. What the province is suggesting is they really don't want us to consider any more requests for boundary expansion that takes in a couple of few of 3 or 4 or 5 properties, which we've just completing. We're in the process of completing the 3rd of those. They're suggesting that if we're going to think about restructuring, we think big picture.
And look at everything, okay, which might include the report that we got from our last meeting. Asking for the property at the south end, the Scots, to join the sewer. So that could be included likely in this as well. If we're going to look at putting this on the list, then we would deal with it then after we get a grant. To look at, or hopefully get a grant, to look at the restructuring part. Am I correct in that?
Right, so Mayor McCarthy, we would have to actually come up with some rationale around some general boundaries first before we ask for the money.
Yes,
But I would suggest that that might be a good place to start, would be areas that we've already providing services to, or areas where there are services nearby would be a good way to start.
so the implications of the ask, the staff action that wasn't done, and I understand why from 2021. Would look at a restructuring study grant that will look at the implications. So we would have to do that first and then ask for the grant. Is that what you're saying? We have to come up with.
We would look at the rationale for the bigger picture.
Right.
Go ahead, but I just want to say, if I may, sorry, Mayor McCarthy, the action item only was looking specifically at the East Bank.
I totally agree. But it sounds like your question was, do we need to look at the East Branch plus all of the other places around town that would like to join before we make application for a grant? Is that what your question? Yeah, okay,
That is correct.
so that's correct. Okay, go ahead.
And just a point of clarification, we're looking at long term, like 20, 30 years.
Correct.
Not within the next 5.
That is correct.
Okay, just to clarify that.
Yeah.
The list at the bottom.
And the bottom of the list, 20 to 30 years. Gotcha.
All right, so Councillor King made the motion that we go with option 1, and Councillor Torrey is seconding that. And are there any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay. Any other- Robinson, are you going to look after this one?
Yes, your worship. Thank you very much. So today, it's a big one. Today, we're presenting you with the draft 2022 annual report.
Administration is looking to present this to you guys for council's consideration. The annual report must be available for public inspection at least 14 days before the annual meeting, which is going to be scheduled June 27th. At the regular open. So today, administration is recommending that council direct us to make the draft 2022 annual report available for public inspection to ensure that the town complies with section 98 of the community charter. And I just wanted to say that Lauren did an amazing job with putting it all together. It looks really, really good.
So there's, we're not going to go through it all. It's now up to everybody to have a look through and see if there's any concerns before June the 27th. Am I correct? Okay, so what you would like is the recommendation that council direct administration to make the draft 2022 annual report available for public inspection to ensure that the town complies with section 98 of the community charter.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
you're moving that. There's second for that. Councilor Chong seconding that. All in favor? Thank you.
Who made that motion that I heard?
Councilor Bennett, then
Thank you.
Councilor Chong. Thank you. And so now we will go to the next part, which is the quarterly council strategic priorities chart and infrastructure strategy. Mr. Rizzo.
Thank you, your worship. This is something we started late last year after the election. Council approved some corporate strategic priorities. And this is the opportunity to make some changes. It provides general direction for administration and the community as far as what council's priorities are. So they have an idea as to what's going to be happening next. And council debated that at the last committee of the whole meeting. And a month or so ago, council also approved an infrastructure strategy. Yeah, that's provides administration some direction on what and how we plan the refurbishment and or replacement of our existing assets and what type of condition you'd like our assets to be in. So these are general guidance documents that assist us in preparing our workloads as well as our budgets that you ultimately approve. So yeah, so just a few minutes ago, council indicated they may want to make a change to the priorities chart, and so this would be your opportunity to do so. So the infrastructure strategy has basically been in place, no changes for the last 6 weeks, not much information has come available since then. So that one's probably in pretty good shape, but the other one you may want to consider making amendments based on the decision you made just a few moments ago.
So that would be the municipal restructuring feasibility project. Is that what you're referring to? Yes,
Correct.
so I think the suggestion was that we added on to not the not 1 to 5, the council priorities, but onto the onto the next section. Am I correct in that? Is that council? Yes. And is that what you're looking at adding that on there then? Is that do we need a motion to do that? Correct. Yes, okay. Council? Yes, go ahead.
You ready to go? I'll pass it. I have a question on this.
Yeah, we did actually just say that, didn't we, in the motion that was made for this? Does that not indicate that we can add it on, or do we have to make another one?
We're gonna make it up.
Okay,
I just asked a question.
go ahead.
Wait, in your park strategy there, is there any update on the charrette for Jarrow Park? Yeah. You didn't.
Thank you, Councillor King, through the chair. Mr. Davis and myself, Director Davis and myself are just finishing the RFP. So that will go very quickly, RFQ, request for qualifications very quickly. There's been no specific updates besides that. It's just that we would not hold a charrette on this kind of project until like early fall.
So what are you taking out out for an RFP then?
Because it takes a while, doesn't it, to get
The
somebody to
RFP.
respond?
Is that for someone that can qualify to do this, right?
That's correct.
Oh, thank you.
So was there anybody else have anything that they wanted to request information on from the chart? Yeah. Okay.
I'm just struggling a little bit in terms of timelines. Because as we talked in a few minutes ago, timeline for boundary expansion, about like 20, 30 years. While our strategic goals here are more so, more micro, rather than the next 5, 10 years. So I feel like there might be a disconnect where it doesn't necessarily need to be placed on the chart. But that's just why this.
So, your worship, that is a council decision. How this chart was made up. With the council priorities at the top 5, those administration is really like working on and. No, they're the next items that we're actually working on. Now, I will say some of the ones that are under the next column, just underneath that table. Below the bottom left, administration has started working on some of those, and when we built this. Priorities chart, we did indicate to council something like the water and wastewater projects where they were under, we were already proceeding on them. So in theory, how this is supposed to work, and will work more over time, is items that are further down the list, administration really won't start working on them that much or at all. So you can put them on that next, we won't start them. So I don't know if because we came into this kind of halfway through the process, we built this priority chart. Council had some priorities in the top 5, but administration had already started working on some of these that were in the next columns. So it is up to council ultimately, if it's on this list, to give an indication to the community that this is something that you're going to be looking at some point. But I don't think administration would do anything until it made it to the top 5. But you folks get the opportunity to change our top 5 every quarter. But I can appreciate your comment, if it's on here maybe, and you're thinking it's not gonna occur for 10 or 15 years, then maybe why put it on here? And that's fair.
Is it just so that you will keep it in back of mind that it doesn't get lost? Is that sort of the reason, or?
Thank you, CEO Rising and Mayor McCormick and Councillor Chong. So the vision would be if we come up with an idea of where that greater municipality boundary might be. It might take 20 to 30 years to achieve that boundary, but it doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to bite off manageable chunks. Between that 30-year build out is achieved, and that's basically what the ministry wants to be able to wants us to do, is to say, okay, your boundaries in the long term are from the border to the north end of the lake, for example. But you might want to go, when services become available, et cetera, you might want to take on certain portions in advance of that longer term. That's what I was referring to, and what the ministry is referring to when they say bigger picture.
Okay. Underneath operations, we have water master plan that the draft is due in June, or the also is the wastewater plan in June. And because those two issues have been brought to the forefront quite recently, I'm wondering if there is a need to move them up, or are they already being dealt with on that list under next? Like, that's my only concern. Is that a suggestion to move? That's already.
They are, your worship, they are on the top 5. So if you look, oh no, you're not.
No, we're not.
Sorry, if you worship,
I'm just wondering, how do we deal with that?
we apologize, this, It's not getting correct with that. The attachment should, the water metering campaign.
Yes.
Was removed. And under operations, all basically was removed, and master plans for the water and sewers was to be added, so we unfortunately, yeah, we made an error in attaching.
Okay, so that can be, I know, you've got too many things on the go. So the water master plan and the wastewater plan have been moved up to the top 5.
That
Is
is
that
correct.
correct?
And yes, and number 2, water metering campaign has been removed.
Okay,
So would you be able to bring back the new charter in the next council meeting with the updates?
Yes, we can.
Maybe not to discuss heavy, but just to
yeah,
have a copy of it,
Yeah, sure. We call it, we'll
email you.
review. I think it's probably best.
so how would you like to deal with with this today then, the recommendations? Should we just, can we postpone?
I think it's
Yes.
easier to, no, I think the proper process would be actually to defeat this. Because then we can start from fresh. Oh, if we postpone, then we gotta replace sheets. So I think I would,
You want a motion to complete
no
both of
motion
the
to,
recommendations?
But they haven't even made a motion, you know, so we could just flip it, bring it back. to the next.
that's probably, yeah, good, that'd be good.
Okay, so we don't have to do anything with this right now. Okay, we'll just skip over that one and move on to the next one. Am I correct?
Other than you made a note that we're gonna get an updated strategic plan.
Yes,
correct.
Apologize for the,
It's probably the wrong one to put in there. We've been busy in the town. Everybody has been, not a problem. We'll deal with that later. It's not a big deal. Okay, so next is the bylaw enforcement appointment. Mrs. Hilton.
Thank you, Mayor Porter. I'm bringing to council a report, that 2 more additional bylaw officers be appointed, by council. So, parking litter starts, with the town as a bylaw enforcement officer, beginning of June. And Cameron Van Camp will also be joining our bylaw enforcement team at the end of June. We are going to be able to issue municipal tickets. They are required to be appointed by council. So administration has 2 recommended resolutions appointing them both as bylaw enforcement officers under the police act and we can make a chart.
But they need to be
2
two separate motions. Okay. So the first one is for Parveen.
I'll move the.
Moving option 1. Parveen, seconder, thank you.
For a question,
Yes,
would these be on top of the bylaw offers where we have, or are they like just
These are the
short term or full
These
time?
are seasonal.
So 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, these are the seasonal that were council approved in February.
And how many bylaw offers do we have right now?
Currently, we're at 2. So we've had 3 seasonal.
okay. So thank you. So that's been moved and seconded. That we approve Parveen Lidar. All in favor? Thank you. And could we have another motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Torrey, Councillor Kane, for Cameron Van Camp, that you get appointed. All in favor? Thank you very much. Passed. Okay, next is general net payroll and Sunbowl Arena financial accounts. And to report on expenditures as of May the 23rd, 2023, general cash requirements of $298,556.92. Sunbowl cash requirements of $1,436.68. And net payroll accounts of $110,772.49. So could we have a motion, please, to receive those for information? Councillor King, Councillor Puerto Rico, all in favor. Thank you. And next is the bylaws. And it's Miss McKay at utility facilities to the town city zoning bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Recordo. So it's quite common in a municipal land use procedure bylaws, or rather zoning bylaws, that utility is a permitted use in all zones. It is not so in our current bylaw at this time. It's certainly something that we would be including in a new bylaw. So we're looking for council to read this new bylaw for the third time, for the first, second, and third time, my apologies. Zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.145, which adds utility use as a general use in all zones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there somebody who would make that motion, please? Thank you, Councillor King, Councillor Federica. That we read it for the first, second, and third time. All in favor?
Question,
Sorry, go ahead.
what do we have in the bylaw now? We don't have the word utilities.
Yes, we do. Thank you again, Councilor King, through the chair. We do have utility in the bylaw right now. It is permitted in zones such as parks.
Oh, I see, you're broadening.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, can we take the vote now?
Yeah, sure.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next is to the traffic bylaw. And the consideration here is for adoption. But I have just received a letter from Kevin Richter, the Deputy Minister of Highways and Regional Services Division. And shall I read this?
No, you don't need to.
You don't need to read it, it's already in it. So it's just, it's approved by it, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Recordo. That is
Okay.
correct.
So is there anyone who would like to make a motion to adopt this bylaw? Thank you, Councillor Federica, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. And next is the municipal ticket amendment bylaw. Yes, sir. Is that Mrs. Wilson or Ms. Robinson?
Thank you, your worship. So today in front of you is the municipal ticket information amendment bylaw 1279.18/2023. So the municipal ticket bylaw was reviewed by administration and noted that some updates were required. There was a number of changes made to the bylaw that were updated or added fees so that we are more in line to the bylaws and so that they can be ticketed appropriately. So today administration is recommending that the municipal ticket information amendment bylaw number 1279.18/2023 be read a first, second, and third time.
Thank you. Approving that, all right, motion to approve that first and third time. Director, Councillor Chong has seconded that, all in favor. Thank you. Okay, next is the new business, and there is a council report on the page 184. I attended a day-long RCMP presentation meeting. That's what could I have to accept that? Thank you, Councillor King, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you very much. And next is notice of motion, and Councillor Bennett has a notice of motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We just had, there's some confusion in the wording of the current bylaw regarding use of the health and wellness policy. And we just want to make it all clear understanding, so I'd just like to read this out, that the following motion be accepted, be forwarded to the next regular open meeting. That council directs administration to bring a report to council that amends health and wellness policy HR-012, which includes council members as part of the town's health and wellness program.
Thank you, and that is brought forward for the next meeting?
Correct. You don't need a resolution.
Okay, motion to bring it brought forward. Okay, now we'll look for the report from the chief administrative officer. Let's do this thing.
Your worship. After the past couple of weeks, I was able to attend the Resort Municipality Initiative Conference in Radium. It was great to meet the other municipalities that have some of the same pressures as us, and we're not alone in some of the struggles we have. So I'm not sure if that was positive or, we're all suffering or dealing with the same thing. But again, it's great to be a resort municipality, but it also has a lot of challenges administratively. Attended a couple things with the Chamber of Commerce, the Lingle Watermark, and also met with them on their project of business retention, expansion, and relocation. We're just looking at the project work plan. One of the more exciting things in town, if you walk along the Pioneer Walkway, the Scent Garden is basically completed. Coming up, May 26th is the Spirit of Suyas barbecue planned for the evening, so encourage everyone to come out with live music and activities for kids. On the capital side, good news, the new chiller has arrived, and so that's on schedule to replace that equipment in our arena. There's also some new landscape rock and paint at the skateboard park, so there's a bunch of things looking good out there. The corporate services have been bringing this up, I think, for the last 2 or 3 meetings, but it's still an issue, and so I'm gonna keep bringing it up. But animal control is still an issue. So again, strongly encourage people to, keep their pets locked up, or make sure their gates are closed, and have leashes, and have dog licenses and all that type of thing. And so it consumes a lot of resources administratively, and so strongly encourage people to look after their pets, so our bylaw enforcement officers can deal with some other pressing issues, especially now that we hit the official tourist season. From finance side, July 4th is the rural sewer date as far as the notices are due. And we mailed property tax notices, so we're starting to get some call with regards to that. With the fire department, there's a few things happened over the last few weeks. Fire rescue participated in the all of our fire departments fire palooza. And also Soyuz Fire Rescue participated with the McDonald's McHappy Day on May 10th. They also had a little bit of a barbecue a while ago and raised $35,000. So an incredible annual dinner and dance that raised a lot of money. And from the capital side, they got their SCBA fill station, which is fantastic news. A lot of things take so long to come in, and that's something that came in not too fairly quickly. And on the plan development side, more work's being done in the zoning bylaw and short-term rentals, et cetera. They're meeting with various stakeholders. One new business in town, Aragonic Juice Bar. I think that's it for new business licenses. On the operational services side, the upcoming week, we should see the paving or the resurfacing of that walk path down Jack Shaw. That's something that's going to be happening here next little bit. You probably noticed a lot of planters and flowers that's being planted. And some things going on with the wastewater. So last week we announced that they're having some issues with cell 2, and it's been a lot of work. I saw that there's certainly some people working on the weekends trying to address the issues that we have up there. I don't think the final plan has been developed and won't be developed for a while. There are, I'm sure the public, there's a lot of people working on it, and as we learn more information, or we will definitely broadcast it as soon as we have any updates to provide. And if you have any other questions of lagoons, I can bring up Mr. Rosenstein. Okay, that's my report.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to commend Mr. Risling and Mr. Brownstein on putting out the e-news, both for the water, the brown water, the very good explanation on there, which makes it certainly more understandable for people, and for the wastewater issues last week. They were, I've had a few people phone me and say, thank you, that explains it very well, and I have a better understanding of what's going on, what you're going through. So thank you both for that. So we need to move that we received the CAO report for information, please. Councillor King, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. And then we'll go to council reports. Councillor King, you're first.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. as mentioned earlier, attended the open house with the chamber at Watermark with Councillor Chung and the CEO Riesling. Like to mention, they remodeled the convention center, so if you have a chance to go down and have a look at it or need to use it, that's a great kind of center location in town. And also attended the Accessibility and Age Friendly Committee meeting last Thursday, where there's some new members and trying to catch up on what we were doing and coming up with new ideas. So I'm sure you'll see a report come at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May 11th, I attended the Restarting Indigenous Relationships seminar in Penticton. May 15th, committee meeting for the Trail of the Okanagan on the advocacy and promotion of the trail, and May 17th, travel to Florida to attend the library for a meeting. And thank you.
Thank you very much. We're glad that things have got straightened out with that, Mr. Carr on that one. Councillor Chung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To echo Councillor King, attended the Chamber of Commerce open house. Great to see all our local businesses come together again. Haven't attended one of those since pre-COVID, so it was fantastic. And then also looking forward to welcoming the Lieutenant Governor next Monday to studios. So really excited about that event and being able to have some constructive conversation. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councillor Conley.
Your worship. I also attended on May the 10th, Restructuring and Digital Relations seminar with Councillor myself. I also on the 11th, on the 10th, attended District Trustees the start of their tourism master plan with their partners. Result as well as Director K. Last Wednesday, the 17th, attended OCU's 77th annual general meeting with their board members, where they actually presented their community recipients this half of the year as well. And just a final note, having to see the provinces announce the funding for Highway 397 for repaving to the Nighthawk and to the US borders. So that paving is starting this week. Bit of a headache for the time being, but definitely be worth it in the long run. So
Thank you very much. So a couple of things. I was also at the Indigenous Relations Workshop. Reese Harding is a lawyer from Young Anderson, and what he recommends is that the province needs to provide more direction on DRIPA, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, because it's very confusing, and that was his recommendation, that people really understand what it is that we're supposed to do first. And that BC was the first province to adopt UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And so that was interesting. I wanted to point out that it was mentioned that down in Jackshaw Gardens, that's where the splash park is. Jack Shaw just died within the last 2 weeks. He was the mayor here for quite a long time. His family lived here, and I just happened to see it in the paper, so I don't think there's anything that's going on. But I have met him several times, and he was a member of the Legion and a very strong volunteer in the town of Vesuvius. So every time we think of Jack Shaw Gardens, that's why it was named after him many years ago. The CAO and I had a meeting with the new Executive Director, Clinical Operations, South Okanagan Acute and Community from Interior Health. And I had to write that down because it's so hard to remember. Madeline Sillig Wong. She's taking over for Carl Meadows, who's been doing that job for about 6 years. We chatted with her in council chambers for about an hour and explained the concerns that we have about healthcare in our neck of the woods. And she's fairly new at the job, so she was quite interested and seemed to have some pretty sensible ideas. So that was positive. Was also on the Vesuvius Tourism Master Plan. which will continue. I also did some interviews at the museum. And there were some students there from Okanagan College that were interviewing some of the people. I would assume that have been here in town for a while, but anyway, they interviewed me. One interesting thing was that oh shoot, what's his name? He's a long-term resident here, and his grandson was here and got to interview him. And I'll think of his name after, but I haven't got it written down. Thought that was kind of good. The Serious Festival Society, I've been a member of that for a long time. They're into Cherry Fiesta planning, which is on July the 1st. And at the last RDOS meeting, the Walter Lemke is his name. Everybody knows Walter Lemke, Don Lemke. It's his grandson, Renee's son, that was here and interviewed her grandfather, his grandfather. So that was cool. At the RDOS meeting, RCMP updates. All of the RCMP heads from the whole regional district come in about every 3 months. And they talk a little bit about what's happened in their region, what their biggest concerns are. And then and it takes about an hour for them all to go through this. So it's very good. And there was also goose addling and having dogs to interrupt the geese. And that was quite a big deal. And I think there was something on the news quite recently in Vernon, because they were concerned about what goose addling is for Canada geese. And there are two different kinds. There's the ones that are indigenous to this area, and then there's the other ones, and they cause no end of problem, as we know, because for years and years we've had a problem with them with the goose droppings on Gyro Beach and on the grass. And so we have had goose addling where they go into the nest and they just shake the eggs and leave them there. Then if they broke them or took the eggs out, the geese would lay more eggs. So it just helps cut down on the population because there's way too many. And through the whole Okanagan, it's a real problem. So it was quite interesting. And if you go on the website and look at goose addling, you'll find a kind of an interesting report on that. Anyway, back to the RCMP, Sergeant Beta was there and said that he was quite interested, and he always does, to come to council. And he's coming next month, I believe. Am I correct on the 13th?
Correct, he was gonna come this morning, but
He could, we had another meeting, yeah. So he will come and talk to us about plans for the summer and how the RCMP can best help the town and look after things well. And the last thing I wanted to say was that the community barbecue, which is on Friday, May 26th, from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock down at Gyro Beach. And it is, we're welcoming anybody in the community who would like to come down and have a hot dog, join the entertainment. We're also going to be honoring several of the volunteers in our community at the same time. So please come down and enjoy that. Okay, I will move to the next section, which is the in camera. And I need a motion that pursuant to section 91 of the community charter, a part of the council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is one or more of the following. Section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. 91D, the security of the property of the municipality. 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Section 91.5, 91F, law enforcement. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of an enactment. And 91J, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. So could I have a motion, please, to move in camera? Thank you, Councillor Federica, Councillor